Hello and welcome to Unacademy, a one-stop destination for the English medium civil services aspirants. A very good morning and welcome to the most comprehensive Hindu analysis on YouTube. So let's begin the discussion by first looking at the topics that we are going to discuss. From today's Delhi edition of the Hindu, I have chosen the 7 most important articles. There were a few other articles, but they are all repeat topics. So these 7 articles are the most relevant in today's newspaper, and let's cover them comprehensively so that you don't have to go back and read the paper again. Before we start, I have an important announcement for you. If you're looking to enroll for Unacademy's online classes, now you can avail our 12-month subscription at just 19,999 along with up to 12 months of free extension. So to avail the offer, you have to enter the code IAS English. And this is a limited period offer. Those interested, click on the link provided in the video description below. And if you want the PDF of the session, please join our official Telegram channel by scanning the QR code on your screen. After the session ends, we will be sharing the PDF over here. So let's get started and look at the first topic. Yesterday, the Nobel Committee has announced the 2025 Nobel Prize in the field of physiology. That is the Nobel Prize for Medicine. And this happens to be an important topic. It's not just about remembering the Nobel laureates, their names. We need to focus on their area of expertise, the field of research, the scientific breakthrough, which led to this premier award being provided to these contributors. The Nobel Prize for Medicine, as it is popularly called, officially referred to as the Nobel Prize for Physiology, it has gone to 3 expert researchers, which includes 2 Americans and 1 Japanese scientist. Mary Bronco, Fred Ramsdell, Shimon Sakaguchi. These are the 3 Nobel laureates in the field of physiology, and the Nobel Committee has recognized their pioneering work, which was carried out in the 1990s. So let's focus on the work, on the research, on the breakthrough that these researchers made in the 1990s and how it has transformed the field of physiology and medicine in today's world. I'm sure many of you would have heard about autoimmune diseases. We might even be aware of family members, friends, relatives who might be suffering from very serious and deadly autoimmune conditions. The research that was carried out by these experts, it has today transformed and revolutionized our understanding of autoimmune diseases and improved our understanding of the human immune system. This scientific breakthrough that they saw in the 1990s, it has today led to advances in the field of treatment of cancer and as well as when it comes to transplantation, organ transplantation, and in the treatment of autoimmune conditions. See, millions of people around the world suffer from various autoimmune conditions where your own immune system starts attacking your healthy body cells and tissues and organs. For example, you might have heard of IBD, the inflammatory bowel disease, Crohn's disease, which is related to it, or rheumatoid arthritis. So there are various kinds of autoimmune conditions where our own immune system, which is responsible for protecting our body against foreign pathogens, will mistake our cells, healthy tissues, and organs to be an intruder and starts attacking them. This leads to a degenerative condition and it could easily turn fatal as well. Many people suffer from autoimmune diseases where it affects their skin or their hair. It affects their pancreas, liver, kidney, lungs, and heart as well. And eventually, it leads to a degenerative condition which easily turns fatal as well. See, even today, we have a very limited understanding when it comes to our human immune system. But this scientific breakthrough was absolutely critical to understand how our immune system gets activated and how it is restrained. See, when it comes to the human immune system, we are basically taught that it's the WBCs, the white blood cells, the lymphocytes, which basically play a role in granting immunity to us. Basically, they have the ability to identify the foreign objects, the intruders, the pathogens, be it viruses, bacteria, or any other foreign organisms, which could be harmful for our body, which could cause a disease in our body. So the immune system is primed to deal with such foreign organisms. The immune system comprises of a complex web of cells. It consists of the B cells, the T cells, microphages, and others. So the human immune system is not just plain WBCs. There is a complex network of cells that function together, your B cells, T cells, macrophages, and the others. We also have the neutrophils, which play an important role. But when you look at the constituents of your immune system, the T cells, the T regs as we call it, plays a very crucial role in activating and in restraining your immune system. The T cells are also known as T regs because they act as a regulator of your immune system. So the T cells, they are like security guards. They essentially allow the immune system to attack only foreign objects and organisms like viruses, bacteria, etc. But when your immune system is looking to target your own body cells, your own healthy tissues and organs, it is the T cell which will hold it back, which will exercise the restraint, acting like a guard, protecting your healthy organs and tissues. Because the research carried out by these experts identified that immune system is not just like a on and off system. It's not like there is a switch which suddenly gets triggered when there is a foreign organism. Your immune system is always primed and active. Even when there is no foreign object or organism, it might start attacking your cells and healthy tissues and organs. So what prevents that from happening is the T cells and a particular gene, a particular factor known as FOXP3. This is what the researchers identified, the Nobel laureates identified through their groundbreaking research in the 1990s when they were experimenting with mice. They figured out that the T cells were acting like guards, which was restraining the immune system, preventing your own immune system from attacking your own body. And the T cells, which consist of a particular factor, a gene, which was named as FOXP3, was crucial in this role of restraint on your immune system. It is this genetic factor and the role of the regulatory T cells, which was holding back your immune system, preventing the attack on your own organs and tissues. But those who have a defect, those who have a mutation on this gene, in their case, the immune system doesn't hold back. The restraint factor is gone when there is a mutation in the FOXP3 gene, which will not allow the Tregs to perform its restraint function. And this is exactly what the researchers figured out. In the experimental mice that they were using, when they removed this genetic factor, FOXP3, the immune system would start targeting the healthy tissues and cells and organs. And within few days, the experimental mice would be dead. Basically, the body would have attacked itself. The immune system would have attacked the healthy organs. So once the FOXP3 factor was reintroduced, when it was infused back into that mice, the immune system would be restrained by the T cells. And that would essentially ensure that the mice would not suffer from an autoimmune condition. This breakthrough was pivotal to better understand how the immunity works in our body. This is what led to great advances and breakthroughs in the last 20-25 years when it comes to the treatment of autoimmune conditions. Today, those who suffer from autoimmune diseases, they must be thankful to these researchers because they identified the role of the Tregs and the mutation at FOXP3 factor, a particular gene, a mutation, a defect over here was resulting in these conditions. So now the treatments are focused on addressing this particular defect. Those who undergo cancer treatment, because in cancer treatment, one therapy is immunotherapy. where the doctors will try to boost the immunity so that it can target the tumorous cells. But there is always a risk of triggering autoimmune condition. So now immunotherapy has advanced so much that without disturbing FOXP3 and the T cells, it can be used to target only the cancerous cells, thus preventing the possibility of autoimmune condition in cancer patients who are undergoing immunotherapy. Then finally, in transplantation, when organ transplantation is done or tissue transplant is done, usually our body will reject the foreign organ or the tissue which has been implanted, right? Because the immune system will recognize this as a foreign object and it will start attacking those foreign cells and tissues. The body would reject the transplant, which would even lead to complications and death of the patient. But today, transplantation has become much, much safer because of this research, this groundbreaking discovery, and the role of this factor, FOXP3, and how it essentially enables or disables the T cells, which basically restrains your immune system from attacking your own body. So, when transplantation is being done, doctors infuse these Tregs, which are engineered T cells are infused additionally to hold back the immune system, to restrain it, to prevent it from attacking the new organ or new tissue which has been transplanted. That's how several transplantation surgeries are becoming very successful these days. So it's in recognition of this groundbreaking work that the Nobel Committee has recognized the research and discovery of these researchers and awarded them the Nobel Prize in Physiology. So this is what you need to understand. A small topic, but if you can get the basics right, you don't have to go too technical, right? UPSC will not expect that from you. Just the basic understanding of how this breakthrough helped in understanding our immune system, how it functions, how it is restrained, its link with autoimmune condition, and what are the benefits of this particular breakthrough. So if you can remember these 7 or 8 points, that is more than enough for prelims, even for mains. So take up this practice question. The 2025 Nobel Prize in Physiology has brought focus on autoimmune diseases and our understanding of the human immune system. Elaborate. So how will you write an answer to this question? So first you can start by talking about the functioning of the human immune system. Try to define what is immunity, the role of the immune system, its pivotal function in protecting us from diseases and infections. So try to discuss about the human immune system and point out the risk posed by autoimmune disorders. This can be one introduction. Or else you can directly start with the current development. You can name the Nobel laureates, mention the groundbreaking work that they carried out, and then elaborate upon it in the body. So it's up to you as to how you will introduce the topic. But if you take this approach, you will be explaining the concept of immunity and autoimmune condition right at the start, showing that you have a hold on the conceptual uh, knowledge as well. Then in the body, maybe you can elaborate a little more on this with examples of autoimmune conditions and diseases, maybe 2, 3 examples showing its impact. Uh, then you can start explaining about the research itself. What did the Nobel laureates discover in the 1990s? The role of T cells, its role in regulating your immune system like a security guard, the role of this genetic factor FOXP3, which the researchers uncovered, and how the mutation here, the defect in this particular genetic factor, could impact the functioning of your T cells, which leads to autoimmune conditions. So, this is what you need to explain and then talk about its application. Discuss the application, how it has enabled better cancer treatment through immunotherapy, how it has helped in treating autoimmune diseases, how it has made transplantations safer. This is what you will elaborate in the body and then conclude your answer, pointing out how this research came out from the private sector. That's another important point to note. This research was entirely carried out in the private sector. That again shows you how scientific funding for research and development from private industries and private organizations could lead to groundbreaking discoveries. Because usually it's public sector research organizations which might lead to pioneering breakthroughs. But this is again another example, another instance of private funded research leading to significant breakthroughs. Maybe you can try to take it in a different tangential, in a different direction altogether. And you can suggest that in scientific research and development, it's equally important to push for greater private investments along with public sector investments. And this case is an example, a classic example of how private funded research can yield great results. But however, you can even bring up the ethical legal challenges which has come up. The problem is cell-based therapy is super expensive. It is very costly. It's not affordable for the common man. Maybe that's one angle I think you can bring in to bring some balance into this answer. You can point out that cell-based therapy, which has been pioneered by private research, of course, it is profit oriented. The problem is it is super expensive. Common man can never afford cell-based therapy, such as treatment for autoimmune conditions or better immunotherapy for cancer treatment. These are very, very expensive, costing lakhs of rupees. So this brings up the question of accessibility of critical healthcare. Though the technology is available to save lives, it's not accessible to everyone because of the high cost. So discuss the ethical legal dimensions involved here. Maybe that can be your conclusion as well, right? So I'm just trying to push you in different directions, make you think from different perspectives so that it improves your critical thinking ability and you can bring this out in your answers. So I really hope you're finding such analysis to be not just interesting, but useful as well for your preparation. And if you want me to continue with answer discussion in every topic, at least for the first topic, please let me know in the comments. Now let's look at the next article. We have an editorial, again related to the domain of medicine, drugs, etc. So this article talks about the quality of drugs being produced in our country. It's a very, very important topic that we need to discuss today because over the last few days, there has been a very disturbing, very concerning development. I'm sure some of you might be aware of this. You might have read news articles related to this. A particular cough syrup, which was manufactured by a pharma company, a private pharmaceutical company from Tamil Nadu, which is sold under the brand name Cold Riff. By the way, it has been a very cheap and very popular syrup for cough, especially in children. It is prescribed for young children suffering from runny nose and cough. It's a very popular syrup which is prescribed by doctors across the country. And it's also very cheap, hardly 28, 30 rupees per bottle. Now, this particular cough syrup has directly contributed to the death of 14 young innocent children in Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh. These are the documented cases. Please remember, these are just the documented cases. The actual number might be much, much higher, where the parents may not have realized why their kid passed away, where the required checks and investigations may not have been done. So at least 14 reported deaths have been counted in Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan, and this deadly cough syrup has been held directly responsible for it. And why did the deaths occur? Because the cough syrup was contaminated with a toxin, a nephrotoxin. What is a nephrotoxin? A nephrotoxin is a toxic substance which can affect your kidneys, which will directly degrade and attack the kidney, resulting in the eventual death of the person. Have you heard of diethylene glycol, DEG, or any form of ethylene glycol? So this was the neurotoxin, the nephrotoxin, which was found in the cough syrup. This is purely because of contamination, either during the manufacturing process or during the bottling and the packaging process, which means this pharma company was not following the established standards. It was not following the mandatory regulatory norms. And the government should also share the responsibility. The governments are responsible. There are dedicated organs of the government to carry out checks and inspections to see whether there are any violations of drug standards and drug control, drug quality standards, and take strict and immediate action against these pharma companies. If these spurious drugs, which were contaminated with a nephrotoxin, got sold in the market and children were prescribed this cough syrup and they consumed it, and a lot of children are dead today in the country, then there needs to be accountability, not just from this pharma company, but from the authorities as well who are responsible to regulate this company. Now, this is a very, very serious matter because it's not happening for the first time. A few months ago, a couple of years ago, similar cases related to Indian manufactured cough syrups resulting in the death of children came up in multiple countries in Africa and Central Asia. In African countries like Gambia, in Central Asian countries like Uzbekistan, in multiple countries, cough syrup linked deaths of children was reported, and they were all linked with Indian pharma companies. In this particular incident, it was a pharma company from Himachal Pradesh, which was under the scrutiny for producing such spurious drugs by not meeting the quality safety standards. And the WHO pinned the blame on India. Though India rejected the allegations, India said there isn't enough conclusive proof to link the death of these children in Africa and Central Asia with Indian manufactured cough syrup. Eventually, the fingers were pointed towards India by multiple countries, including by the WHO, which significantly hurts India's image. Now, please understand, on one side, this is about safety, it's about human health. There is no way you can compromise on this, be it the life of an Indian kid or be it the life of an African kid or a kid in a foreign country. It's equally precious, equally important. So on one hand, it's the question of safety, it's a question of human health. It is absolutely essential to maintain your standards and your quality control. There can't be any excuses over here. If there is a lapse, there has to be accountability. Those responsible have to be held liable for it and delivered the strictest of punishments. On the other hand, this is about India's image. See, we are looking to become a Viksit Bharat, right? India is now positioned as the pharmacy of the world. India is one of the largest producer of generic drugs and vaccines in the world. India's pharma industry is the backbone of Africa's healthcare system. Multiple nations from the developing, underdeveloped world, they are dependent on Indian drugs, Indian vaccines. Now, what is the image you are creating by not following the safety standards and the hygiene protocols? If such cases and incidents keep coming up every few months, which country will buy drugs and vaccines from India? This has been a critical part of our soft power diplomacy. During COVID-19 pandemic, India dispatched free vaccines to multiple countries, creating goodwill and trust for India. Tomorrow, who will take India's vaccines, India's drugs, if these cases are coming up again and again, and if no accountability is being fixed? Right? Yes, now the government is acting. Madhya Pradesh has banned this cough syrup. Other state governments are also kicking into action. Tamil Nadu government has now woken up and dealing with this problem. The doctors who prescribed the drug have been arrested as well. So, post the incident, action is being taken. But will those lives, the innocent lives of those children which was lost, will it come back? Will there be any relief for those parents ever? No matter what compensation you give, no matter whether you jail these authorities and the company directors, doesn't matter to the parents in the family which lost their children. That is something you can never repair, you can never rectify. So that is the reason why it is very, very crucial to enforce drug quality standards, ensure the highest manufacturing and laboratory standards are followed. See, today we are looking to export our goods into developed markets, US, Europe, Japan, Australia. We complain that they have very high barriers, non-tariff barriers, when it comes to hygiene and phytosanitary measures, because they're very particular about the quality of the products they import. India says it's a non-tariff barrier, that you are expecting a developing nation to implement those standards, which is not possible. But when such cases happen, when such incidents come up, it will hurt India's export potential eventually. Forget exporting to developed countries. Even developing, underdeveloped countries will not buy your drugs and vaccines. So it is of utmost importance for India right now to fix this problem, which has been prevalent from a long, long time. It's nothing new. For many, many years, there have been serious question marks about the quality of drugs produced by our pharma companies, the safety of the drugs, the process which is followed. It's not that we don't have laws and regulations. It's not that we don't have regulatory bodies and enforcement authorities. We have everything in place. What is lacking is actual enforcement on the ground. See, we have the Central Drug Standard Control Organization, the CDSCO, under which you have the Drug Controller General of India. These are the nodal institutions in the country to ensure the safety of drugs and the quality of drugs. They have a legal mandate under the Drug and Cosmetics Act. There is a dedicated law in this regard under which you have clear guidelines and regulations which have to be enforced. State governments will have their own departments. Under the health department, there would be a dedicated body for ensuring that these licenses are properly checked, inspections are carried out, and regular checks are implemented. So eventually, there is a lapse on the part of the state governments and a lapse on the part of the central government as well. They have to take ownership of these incidents. They have to fix these gaps that we have when it comes to enforcing the quality framework in the drugs industry, in the pharma industry. The good manufacturing standards, good laboratory standards, the packaging standards have to be enforced very, very strictly. And in case of any lapse, there has to be very, very strict penalties, not just financial penalties, paying a fine, which they should include a jail term. Of course, in this particular episode, given the number of deaths that has occurred, definitely there would be a criminal liability on the company. But I'm saying even the authorities should be held liable. Those who are supposed to inspect the plant, inspect the drugs, test them regularly. What were they doing? Why wasn't this particular batch checked? If it's only a particular sample, a particular batch which was contaminated, the regular checks should have happened. It should have been flagged at the packaging stage or before distribution. So how did the company and the responsible authorities, how did they allow this spurious batch to be distributed in the market? That is where the accountability has to be fixed and very, very strict action has to be taken. You need to set an example, make an example out of this particular case. So tomorrow the pharma industry and the concerned authorities would never dare commit such lapses. So this is what you take away from this editorial. And based on this, look at this practice question. Ensuring quality control of the highest standard in pharmaceuticals is essential for India to emerge as a reliable global source for drugs and vaccines. Evaluate in the context of recent incidents of spurious drugs. That is the statement based on which this question has been asked. So, from what we discussed, take the key points, structure that into a good answer, and please practice your answer writing. In every session, I keep on insisting that practice your answer writing because clearing the mains exam is the biggest challenge for UPSC aspirants. Please understand, prelims is difficult. I understand, but prelims is just a qualifying round. It's basically an elimination round to eliminate the non-serious candidates. Correct? With basic coverage of syllabus, revision of current affairs and concepts, you will be able to crack prelims. But the real challenge is in the mains exam where you have to write descriptive answers. You have to think critically on your own. You can't simply by heart from someone's notes. If you have noticed in my sessions, that's why I don't give any notes or pointers because that would become spoon feeding. I want you to listen, concentrate, and engage in this discussion and understand the theory and the concepts and the current affairs so that tomorrow you will be able to think on your own, write on your own. So please make use of the discussion and the questions we are giving and the answer writing approach I'm giving to practice your answer writing. Now coming to the next topic, another interesting topic again related to health and medicine. So today, all three articles, the major articles are related to health and medicine. This topic is related to passive euthanasia. What is passive euthanasia? Why is it in news? What's the status of euthanasia in India? Is it legal? Is it illegal? What are the challenges related to it? Let's explore this topic. It's related to polity as well. related to governance, related to ethics. So it's a topic that is relevant for multiple subjects. The reason why this topic is in news is because in the British Parliament in United Kingdom, the House of Commons has passed a bill, the Terminally Ill Adults End of Life Act. Now the bill is in front of the other house of the British Parliament. Once passed, once it comes into effect as a law, this would be a huge breakthrough, a legally progressive step as far as British legal standards are concerned. So now the House of Commons, one of the houses of the British Parliament, has passed the bill, the Terminally Ill Adults End of Life Bill, which is likely to become an act very soon. So this bill proposed in the United Kingdom, it basically permits physician assisted dying, a doctor assisted dying in terminally ill patients. Let's say a patient is suffering from a terminally ill condition, let's say cancer, for example, or a deadly autoimmune disease which has completely destroyed their quality of life of that person. Let's say the person is no longer able to lead a life with dignity. In such instances, following the laid down protocols and regulations, physician assisted euthanasia is being allowed in the UK. Euthanasia is a very debatable, controversial topic. It raises ethical questions, social, cultural, religious questions as well, scientific and legal questions. It presents multiple dilemmas for healthcare professionals, for the government, for the patient, for the family members. So, how do you navigate this complex area of euthanasia? Euthanasia is basically assisted dying, where there are different forms of it. There is passive euthanasia, there's active euthanasia, right? Essentially, assisted dying, where a person either has lost the will to live or suffering from a terminally ill condition or the person is brain dead, right? So, in active euthanasia, the physician will basically assist in committing the act of killing, which is basically a type of suicide, assisted suicide, as you can call it. There are countries which legally allow it, countries like Switzerland, for example, on the grounds of empathy, compassion, to allow people who don't want to continue their life, especially when they are suffering from deadly conditions. Right? Countries like Switzerland have a clear policy in place that even allows active euthanasia, active killing of a patient who might live for a few more months or years, right? They can sign up for active euthanasia, where through a certain injection, the doctors will take the life of that particular patient. So, in some countries where there is more progressive thought, it is seen as a right. The right of dying is seen as a basic right. The right to live a life of dignity and die with dignity is seen as a basic fundamental right. But passive euthanasia is very different. In passive euthanasia, there are certain conditions which has to be met. Thorough reviews are done. Of course, this is done in active euthanasia as well. But even when there is no immediate risk of death, you can opt for active euthanasia in countries like Switzerland, right? But of course, there are few conditions to be met. But still, active euthanasia allows for active killing of the patient. But in passive euthanasia, it's just the withdrawal of the life support. Let's say a person is already brain dead, or a person is basically given a life of hardly few more weeks or maybe few months, that too with suffering, with acute pain, acute suffering, acute agony. In such cases, when passive euthanasia is legally allowed, and if the patient has already given a living will, just like you write a will to divide your property, your assets for your family members. So when you're healthy, when you're having a fit mind, when you're mentally stable, if you put in place a living will, a living document saying that passive euthanasia should be carried out on me in case I suffer from a terminally ill condition, if in case, let's say, I'm brain dead, or in case no other treatment is going to work. So when there is a living will given, and this can even be enabled by the family members, there is a process that has been put in place in India to permit passive euthanasia today. Until recently, euthanasia was completely illegal in the country. But of course, in different pockets of the country, it was being done illegally, informally. When a patient was beyond revival just to end their suffering and pain. Family members would also agree to it. Doctors would informally, illegally do it, where they withdraw the final life support, allowing the patient to pass away naturally. Right? So that's the difference between active and passive euthanasia. In active euthanasia, there is active killing involved through an injection, where the life is actually taken by the doctor after following the due process which is put in place, after meeting all the criteria and conditions. But in passive euthanasia, there is no actual killing. It's just withdrawal of the life support. Only under certain specific conditions, if certain criteria are met, if all the regulations are followed, life support can be legally, formally withdrawn, allowing for natural death to occur. So that you don't prolong the life of that person and cause more suffering and agony and pain in their last moment. It's a big relief for the patient themselves. It's a big relief for the family members as well, right? But however, euthanasia raises multiple problems. What if a family is misusing euthanasia to get rid of the old members in the family? Let's say their parents. That too in complex societies like India, where the elderly become dependent on their children or grandchildren. There is a financial dependency and dependency to look after them as well, right? So there might be added pressure if you, let's say, legalize active euthanasia, where a patient can opt for active killing. If you allow this to be executed, what if there is pressure from the family and old people are forced to opt for it? That is a serious ethical dilemma, moral, legal dilemma as well, amounting to murder. So India has been very cautious when it comes to the topic of euthanasia, not allowing it legally for a long time. But recently in 2018, the Supreme Court intervened through the common cause judgment. The Supreme Court essentially recognized passive euthanasia, pushing the government to bring out the legal regulations that governs passive euthanasia today. So active euthanasia is illegal. Actively killing a patient is not allowed. That is completely illegal. It amounts to murder. The doctors also would be held liable and will be prosecuted along with others who are responsible for it. Whereas passive euthanasia is allowed in the country following the Supreme Court's intervention in 2018 in the common cause judgment. So following this, the government has put in place the restrictions and regulations through the health ministry. So let's say there is a patient who is terminally ill. Doctors have certified that this patient can't survive more than few weeks, maximum 4 or 5 months, and they are going through immense pain and suffering. And if that patient has executed a living will, or if that patient has appointed someone on their behalf to execute end of life decisions, maybe I have not created a living will asking for passive euthanasia in such a case, but maybe I've asked one of my immediate family member to take the end of life decisions on my behalf. Since I'm incapacitated, I'm not in the right condition. Maybe the person is brain dead, right? So if you have executed this will or a document, allowing some person whom you trust, whom you love, to take that end of life decision for you, they can essentially authorize the passive euthanasia, the passive killing of that person. How? First, the doctors who are treating will have to certify that yes, this patient is ideal for passive euthanasia. Then, provided if the living will is present or someone on the patient's behalf can take a legally authorized end of life decision for them, then there are two medical boards which will review this. There are two independent medical boards which are set up with outside experts, apart from the doctor who's treating, apart from the hospital which is treating the patient, who will review the case to see whether it's legally fit for approval. Then it goes to the local magistrate, the local court, which should grant the approval as well. Following this, the doctors will withdraw the life support, which is sustaining the life of the terminally ill patient, allowing for the patient to naturally pass away and thus ending their further suffering and agony. This is in recognition of Supreme Court's interpretation of right to life. Right to life under Article 21 also guarantees you the right to lead a life with dignity, which includes the right to die with dignity. Right to die with dignity has been interpreted by the Supreme Court as a fundamental right under Article 21 itself. It's on this basis that passive euthanasia is now legal in the country. But however, it is rarely being used in the country. Why? Because one, there is no awareness, right? Given our cultural hesitation, our sensitivities based on religious or social considerations. In general, families, people are hesitant to discuss about the topic itself, right? There's a lot of hesitation when it comes to discussing the topic of a will. Forget living will, even the will of that person regarding what will happen to their property and assets. There's a lot of sensitivity attached to it. And this is something the government understands. Of course, you can't simply dismiss this, right? Maybe the society is not fully prepped for such rules and such laws to be brought in. So, keeping in mind all the considerations, there is a lack of awareness, a lack of general understanding of how this works, right? And even the healthcare professionals themselves are not aware of all the regulations which are in place, right? So it requires further training, be it on the legal implications, ethical implications. Medical professionals should be first made aware. And the process is very complex in India. The process is very complicated because once, let's say, end of life decision is taken, right? That, okay, the patient themselves might have decided or their family members have decided, taken this end of life call. But without the approval of the two medical boards and the magistrate approval, it can't be executed. So writer is suggesting maybe active euthanasia is too dangerous. It can be misused. As I said, if active euthanasia is allowed, like in a country like Switzerland, in India, given our family structures, our social cultural considerations, what if people start pushing their elderly parents to opt for it, which is essentially murder being committed because they're financially dependent, they don't want to take care of them, right? They threaten to abandon them, or forcing them, pushing them to opt for active euthanasia. So that can't be allowed in a society or a country like India at this stage. It's simply out of the question. The writer agrees with that. But the writer is saying, though we have passive euthanasia today, it's not at all being used because the process is too complicated. There is lack of awareness, lack of training, lack of education about this topic. These are the things which needs to be addressed. The writer is suggesting maybe the medical review board need not be some outside team of doctors and professionals. How about decentralizing this? How about allowing the treating doctor and the doctors at the local hospital to form the first board and decide whether the patient is fit for passive euthanasia or not? And how about having one independent ombudsman who will audit these decisions after that? Instead of involving the magistrate, because the court process again gets dragged and delayed. And by that time, the patient suffering keeps on continuing, right? Even before the issue or the case reaches a logical conclusion, the patient themselves might have passed away. So, what's the point of even allowing passive euthanasia in that case? So, it has to be acted upon very quickly, immediately, maybe within 24 to 48 hours. For that, you have to decentralize the decision making. The review board can be at the hospital level itself, where a team of professional doctors with an independent doctor can certify that yes, this patient is fit for passive euthanasia, provided if there is a living will executed, right? And for that, there should be awareness about living will. Right from school, right from younger days, you should educate the people about the concept of living will, why it is important, or how you can appoint someone on your behalf to take end of life decisions. When you are incapacitated, when you are not able to take the decision for yourself, you can already have someone nominated on your behalf, someone whom you trust. This is something that is very much essential, and the discussion around this should become more common, right? The taboo around it should be addressed, the social constraint should be addressed, and that requires awareness, greater literacy regarding this, greater education regarding this. The doctors themselves, hospitals themselves are not aware. They should be trained, they should be aware of this as well. Then there could be a ombudsman to ensure it is not misused. There can be an ombudsman which reviews every case, quickly grants the final approval. Then there is no need for a court intervention at all, right? When you have an independent system which can be quickly verifiable and thus providing for quick relief to a terminally ill patient. So this is purely on the grounds of a humane death. leading a very humane life and dying with dignity, which is recognized as a fundamental right under Article 21. So the right to die is part of right to life. But of course, there are restrictions around it. Yeah. So the conclusion point is active euthanasia may not be suited at all for a country like India, at least for the coming future. As we can see, active euthanasia is never ever feasible. It will be highly prone to misuse, right? So this is out of the question. Ethically, legally, socially, active euthanasia is simply not feasible for a country like India. But passive euthanasia, which has been allowed through Supreme Court's intervention, currently there are regulations in this regard. Process is there for enabling passive euthanasia, but it should be made easily available, accessible for those suffering from terminally ill conditions so that they can pass away peacefully and thus limit their pain and suffering and agony, right? Let me know what you think about this in the comment section. It's a very controversial, sensitive topic, right? What is your view on euthanasia in general? What do you think of active euthanasia, which is allowed in countries like Switzerland, right? Where people actually opt to commit suicide as well, even when they don't have any health condition or terminally ill condition. Sometimes people have gone to Switzerland just for this. There's something called death tourism, suicide tourism, which is quite popular. Since it's not allowed in most jurisdictions, people opt to go for Switzerland just to get this done, where the doctor injects a person and actively takes their life, right? How ethical is it? How legally correct is it? And how about passive euthanasia? What do you think? Should everybody execute a living will when they are in good condition, right? When you're physically, mentally fit and aware, should you execute a living will, keep it in place, or at least authorize someone to take your end of life decisions? So let me know your views on this in the comment section. Now we move towards the smaller articles in the paper. India, Australia, they're all set to step up their defense partnership further. Defense Minister Rajnath Singh is on an important visit to Australia to further cement the security defense partnership between the two countries. See, please understand, Australia is a close partner for India. We have elevated our relations to the strategic partnership level. We are marking the fifth anniversary of our strategic comprehensive partnership. We enjoy very close trade, cultural ties, defense and security ties, and strategic relations today. India, Australia conduct multiple military exercises, including OS Index. We are part of the Malabar naval exercise. We are part of the Quad grouping, the quadrilateral, which also includes Japan and US to maintain stability in the Indo-Pacific. Then India, Australia are also part of the Supply Chain Resilience Initiative with Japan to create resilient global supply chains to reduce their dependency on China. So, with such a close partner, India is now finalizing a defense security cooperation agreement, which is likely to be signed in another few days. This will promote defense cooperation with regard to weapons production. Australia is recognizing India and India's defense industry, both public and private defense industry, as major players in the defense market. And Australian companies are looking to collaborate with Indian defense manufacturers. This will enable joint defense research and development, joint production. See, right now, India, Australia have even provided each other with logistics exchange support, where Indian forces can use Australian bases for refueling and servicing, and vice versa. Australian forces can use Indian facilities for refueling and other logistical support. Recently, we have signed the first ever air to air refueling agreement. India's first ever air to air refueling agreement is with Australia, where both sides have a commitment to provide mid air refueling for their aircraft when they are on a long journey, to provide mid air refueling. So that's a commitment that both countries have put in place. We are very close when it comes to collaborating in the Indo Pacific. Australia is not just a Pacific power, it's a major Indian Ocean power as well. Right? Australia has important strategic islands, such as Christmas Island, and the Coco Island, right below Indonesia, which is strategically vital for India as well. Recently, Indian Navy, Indian Air Force, they have started using these Australian military facilities at Christmas Island and Coco Island, which is in the Indian Ocean. And we have been dispatching our ships and aircraft to Australian bases in the Pacific to take part in joint exercises and joint training. So, this relationship will now be elevated to the next level with the signing of this Defense Security Cooperation Agreement, which will bring our defense industry together to collaborate in research and development and joint production. And this could transform our security relations in the coming days. Both countries are also working on a maritime security arrangement. They are working on a maritime security roadmap in the field of maritime domain awareness, that is to track the movement of vessels, ships, submarines, aircraft across the Indian Ocean and generate maritime intelligence which they can share with each other. So, this is another initiative which is being discussed and negotiated between the two sides. So, this again establishes how India, Australia are very, very close defense partners. Our military partnership is growing, our intelligence based partnership is growing as well. So, that is something you need to note down. Next, India's fisheries sector, especially shrimp, the shrimp industry, took a massive hit when Donald Trump announced 50% tariffs on India. India is a major shrimp exporter, and the US market was one of the largest export market for India. So for India's fisheries, it was a big loss, a very, very big hit, because obviously no American importer would import at 50% tariffs. It doesn't make any sense because they have other alternate suppliers like Vietnam and the others. So India's fishing industry, the shrimp industry in particular, has taken a very big hit. We have almost lost the entire US market overnight because of the 50% tariffs. But now there is some ray of hope for the shrimp farmers and the commercial cultivators in India, because around 10 shrimp and fish variety from India, it is all set to get a certification called the MSC certification, the Global Marine Stewardship Council certification. This certification, it basically certifies that the fish has been sourced in a sustainable manner. And with this certification, the value of this particular shrimp and fish will go up in the global market because there is a appeal, there is a demand for sustainable fishing, only for sustainable fish products in countries like Japan, in the European market. The customers are very conscious about the sourcing of their fish, their food, their shrimp, where it is coming from, whether it was sourced through sustainable methods without causing much damage to the marine ecosystems. So, this label or this certification is given only if the standards of Food and Agriculture Organization is met. The FAO, which is a UN organization, the Food and Agriculture Organization, it has a code of conduct for responsible fishing. So, if this code of conduct is followed and implemented, only they are eligible for this certification, a sustainable certificate known as Marine Stewardship Council certificate, the MSC. Once you get the certificate, once your products are certified with this, now you can appeal this product, you can market this product to specific countries like Japan and European countries where there is a high demand for sustainable seafood products. Because seafood exploitation has led to large scale environmental destruction, right? It is linked directly to the depletion of fishes and the collapse of entire food chains. So, in developed markets like Europe and Japan, customers are highly conscious of where their fish is coming from. They're even willing to pay a premium price, almost double the actual price for sustainable fishing sources. So, this could help us find a new market and we can even sell at a much higher price with this particular tag. So, please note down Marine Stewardship Council. It's a sustainable certificate, a global certificate that is issued based on the code of conduct of Food and Agriculture Organization. So very important for your prelims. Now coming to the prelims only section, there are just two articles, very small topics. We can quickly wrap it up, and both are from the defense sector. Indian Navy and Coast Guard are seen in this image participating in an exercise known as NATPOLREX NATPOLREX X. Please note this down. NATPOLREX X. It's an exercise carried out between Indian Navy and the Coast Guard of India. And what is the purpose of the exercise? The entire focus of this exercise was on dealing with marine oil spills, containing a oil spill, because oil spills are an environmental disaster. When, let's say, there is a shipping accident, a ship which goes aground and starts sinking, right? It will eventually leak all the dangerous oil it's carrying, not just the diesel and the fuel, but it could be carrying mineral oil, petrochemicals, hazardous chemicals as well, or oil based substances which can leak into the marine environment. So containing the oil spill is a top priority, or else the oil could easily disperse and break up and spread towards the coastline, damaging the coastal ecosystem, the coral reefs, and the fishes that are present. So it's important to contain the spread of the oil spill and use bioremediation methods or chemical agents or dispersants, or even the vacuum suction machines to suck out the oil entirely, right? And use the flotation buoys to contain the spread of the oil because of tidal activity and wind currents. These are essential disaster management tasks performed by the Coast Guard of India. The Coast Guard is the nodal authority in the country to deal with oil spills. Please note down this point. The Indian Coast Guard has a legal mandate under the Coast Guard Act to act as the nodal authority to deal with oil spills, to contain oil spills. It has the technology, the material, equipment, and resources for it. So the Coast Guard has been rehearsing with Indian Navy to deal with such incidents, because recently there were back-to-back oil spill incidents in the Arabian Sea off the coast of Kerala, where two ships suffered such accidents. There was one such oil spill near the coast of Chennai. Then few months ago, there was a major oil spill near Mauritius when India helped Mauritius to contain the oil spill. So dealing with such environmental disaster is a priority for the Coast Guard. Coast Guard is the nodal authority responsible for it. So that's why this training exercise was carried out. The NATPOLREX X. The last article under Operation Sadbhavana, the Indian Army has built tent homestays in Uttarakhand to promote tourism in the Pithoragarh district of Uttarakhand, which is closer to the Lipu Lake Pass in the Kalapani region near the border with Nepal and China, Tibet on the other side. It's a popular tourist destination in the Himalayan belt. So Indian Army has enabled the local community by building these tent homestays to attract tourists, to give a boost for tourism and to promote rural livelihood in the border district with the Pithoragarh district in Uttarakhand. This initiative has been taken up under Operation Sadbhavana. So what is Operation Sadbhavana? Operation Sadbhavana is a goodwill initiative. It's a peace and development initiative. You can call it a soft power initiative of the Indian Army. It's being implemented from many years. The Indian Army started out such programs from late 1990s itself, especially in border areas and conflict-prone areas like Jammu and Kashmir, in Ladakh, in Northeast India, wherever Indian Army is deployed, right along the borders, or even in insurgency, terrorism-prone areas, where Indian Army is engaging in counter-insurgency, counter-terrorist operations under the provisions of AFSPA, the Armed Forces Special Powers Act. The role of the security forces could be seen with suspicion by the locals. Locals will not trust the Indian forces. There might be some resentment, some anger, especially in conflict-prone areas. So to ensure that there is a bond, a trust which is developed between the security forces and the local community, such goodwill development initiatives are taken up by the Indian Army. Under Operation Sadbhavana, the focus is on enabling and creating essential infrastructure like building roads, providing water supply, power supply, installing solar plants, etc. Or women empowerment and education is also a focus. Setting up schools or bringing teachers, good teachers to teach the children at the school level. Sometimes officers themselves will conduct training programs, especially to train the youth for competitive exams, right? Or They focus on healthcare camps, healthcare initiatives, conducting free vaccine drives, free eye checkup, free health checkup camps by using uh, the doctors, the medics that are available with the army itself. During times of disaster, Indian Army steps in to provide basic support and assistance under Operation Sadbhavana. So under this program, Indian Army has taken up a number of developmental activities aimed at rural development, creating livelihood income opportunities, aimed at women empowerment, improving education, healthcare, infrastructure, etc. So by building tent homestays in Pithodgarh, the army is helping the local community to attract tourists, to create income opportunities, create new livelihood opportunities. This perfectly aligns with the vision and goal of the Vibrant Villages program, which is being implemented by the Home Ministry under border management. The Home Ministry last year launched Vibrant Villages program, where villages facing the Chinese border from Ladakh till Arunachal Pradesh, they are getting special funds with special focus on development initiatives to ensure that the local border population receives the benefits of development and they remain favorable towards the Indian state. They can act as the eyes and ears of the government and the security forces and the intelligence agencies. Because if you don't develop these areas, if disaffection spreads in border areas, that can be exploited by the enemy, right? Or insurgents, smugglers, terrorists might exploit that by bribing the locals to get local support. So to avoid that and to ensure that the border population remains patriotic and loyal and faithful towards the nation and assist the security forces by acting as their eyes and ears, you need to provide better development in the border regions. So Operation Sadbhavana fulfills all these objectives. That's why I said it aligns with the vision of a Vibrant Villages program. So on this note, I bring my discussion to an end. I hope you guys have liked and understood all the topics. And if you benefited from the class, do let us know through your comments. Don't forget to press that like button, share this video with other aspirants, and do subscribe to our channel. That is it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow.